No one expected the war to begin that day. The human outpost on the edge of known space was quiet, almost forgotten by the greater galaxy. It was built on a dead-looking moon, orbiting a gas giant near the wild zone. No major species wanted this place. The wild zone was close and everyone knew what that meant. Death, monsters, no return. Ethan Cross stood near the observation window looking into the dark stars. He was human, average in height, strong but not bulky, with tired eyes that had seen too much for his age. He was a scout, sent here because humans were the only ones reckless enough to live this close to the wild zone. Behind him, alarms suddenly screamed. Red lights filled the command room. Unknown fleet detected? A voice shouted. Ethan turned fast. The screens showed shapes coming out of hyperspace. Alien ships, too many. Their design was sharp and cruel, built for war. "They're not traitors," someone whispered. They were the Carvel, a species known for one thing, conquest. They had destroyed dozens of worlds. No warnings, no mercy. The outpost had no real defenses. It was never meant to fight a war. The first blast hit. The station shook violently. Metal screamed. People fell. Another blast tore through the outer hull, exposing corridors to space. The Carvel ships did not slow down. Ethan grabbed a rifle and ran. Smoke filled the halls. Humans screamed, some fighting, some running, some already dead. The Carvel boarding pods slammed into the station. They came in waves. Tall, armored, four-eyed creatures with glowing weapons. They moved with discipline and hatred. Humans fired back, but it was useless. The enemy was better armed, better prepared. Within minutes, the outpost was lost. Ethan found himself cornered with a small group of survivors. A command officer gave the final order. "There's no escape," the officer said, blood running down his face. "But we can make sure they don't win clean." Ethan understood what that meant. They fought until the ammo was gone. When the Carvel finally captured them, the outpost was silent. The survivors were dragged onto the enemy flagship. The Carvel commander studied them with cold interest. "Humans," the commander said in broken trade language. "You survive where others fail. Interesting." Ethan met the aliens' gaze without fear. That annoyed them. The Carvel did not kill Ethan. That would have been too simple. Instead, they chose something worse. The wild zone, every species feared it. A region of space filled with unstable planets, unknown life forms, and predators that evolved beyond logic. Ships vanished there. Fleets disappeared. No one returned alive. The Carvel believed it was the perfect execution. They stripped Ethan of his weapons and armor. They gave him basic survival clothes and nothing else. No communicator, no map, no chance. They dropped him on a forested planet deep inside the wild zone. The moment Ethan hit the ground, the ship was gone. Silence followed. The air was thick, heavy, and alive with strange sounds. Tall alien trees twisted into the sky. Plants glowed softly in blue and green. The ground pulsed faintly like a living thing. Ethan stood up slowly. He did not panic. Humans had learned long ago that panic killed faster than claws or teeth. He checked himself. No broken bones, a few cuts. He was alive. That alone was unexpected. The wild zone did not attack immediately. That worried him more. He moved carefully, listening. Every sound mattered. Every shadow could hide death. Hours passed. He found water, drinkable somehow. He ate strange fruit after testing it on his skin first, then in small bites. Humans had learned to adapt or die. Night came fast. The forest changed. Eyes opened in the darkness. Sounds grew closer. Something massive moved between the trees. Ethan climbed, hid, waited. The first creature attacked near dawn. It was not alone. A pack of smaller predators rushed through the forest, killing something bigger than them with speed and coordination. They were not mindless animals. They hunted with intelligence. Ethan watched silently. Then the ground shook. Something else had entered the area. The predators froze. The forest went quiet. From between the trees came the apex. It was enormous. Wolf-like in shape, but nothing like any wolf from Earth. Its body was covered in layered scales that shimmered with faint blue light. Multiple eyes glowed softly across its face, all focused, all aware. It was death given form. The smaller predators fled. Ethan did not move. The creature approached slowly. Each step carried power. It sniffed the air, then looked directly at him. Most species would have attacked. It did not. Instead, it sat. That alone broke every rule of survival the galaxy believed in. Ethan stayed still, breathing slow. He lowered his eyes slightly, not in fear but respect. A human gesture, calm, controlled. The creature studied him. Minutes passed. Then it did something no one would ever believe. It lay down beside him, not as prey, not as enemy, but as something else, a companion. The bond was not spoken, it did not need to be. The wild zone had tested the human and found him worthy, not strong enough to dominate but adaptable enough to survive. From that moment the planet changed. Creatures that would have hunted Ethan stayed away. Predators watched from a distance but did not approach. The forest itself seemed to accept his presence. Days turned into weeks. Ethan learned the land. The creature, silent, deadly, loyal, never left his side. It hunted. It protected. It watched. Together they survived what should have been impossible. Far away, the Carvels celebrated. They believed the human was dead. Another lesson proven. Another enemy erased. They were wrong. Deep in the wild zone, something new was being born. Not just survival, not just revenge, but a living warning. Humanity had been tested by the deadliest place in the galaxy, and the wild zone did not kill him. It chose him. Ethan Cross no longer counted the days. Time worked differently in the wild zone. The sky changed colors without warning. Some days were long and burning hot, others short and cold, but Ethan survived all of them. The creature stayed with him. It moved like a shadow, silent and deadly. Its glowing eyes watched everything. Ethan never gave it a name. Names created distance. This was not a pet. This was not a tool. This was a partner. They hunted together. Ethan learned quickly. He learned which sounds meant danger and which meant food. He learned which plants healed wounds and which burned the skin. The creature watched him, sometimes correcting him, sometimes allowing him to fail just enough to learn. When predators attacked, the creature responded first. Fast, precise, merciless. Ethan did not interfere unless needed. He saved his energy. Humans survived by choosing when to fight, not by fighting everything. One night the ground trembled. The creature stood instantly, body tense. Its scales glowed brighter than ever before. Ethan felt it too. Something large was coming, something dangerous even by wild zone standards. The air grew heavy. Trees bent as something massive pushed through the forest. A rival apex predator. It was larger than the creature. Its body was thick with armored plates, its jaws wide enough to crush bone with ease. It roared, a sound that shook leaves from the trees. Ethan did not run. The creature stepped forward. The fight was brutal. Claws tore into scales. Blood splashed across glowing plants. The forest screamed around them. Ethan watched closely, not frozen by fear, but calculating. When the rival predator pinned the creature down, Ethan acted. He used fire, not advanced weapons, not alien tech. Fire. He had learned how to create it using local materials. He threw burning resin into the predator's eyes. It screamed in pain, loosening its grip. The creature struck back, one precise movement. The rival apex fell. Silence returned. The creature turned to Ethan. Its eyes studied him differently now, not just as something accepted, but as something respected. From that moment their bond deepened. Far from the wild zone, the galaxy moved on. The Carvel Empire expanded, celebrating victory after victory. To them, the human outpost was already forgotten, but not everyone forgot. A neutral trade vessel passing near the wild zone detected something impossible. A signal. Weak, broken, human, the crew argued. No one survives there, one alien said. But the signal exists, another replied. They did not enter the wild zone. No one did, but they recorded the data and sold it. The information spread quietly. Humans noticed. Human high command studied the data with disbelief. The signal pattern was old, damaged, but real. Ethan Cross, officially listed as dead. They wanted to act. They did not. Humans understood something the galaxy did not. The wild zone changed those who entered it. Sending a rescue team could doom everyone, so they waited. Back on the planet, Ethan felt watched, not by predators, by eyes in the sky, drones. Alien scouts. The Carvel had returned. They had not expected survival, but they detected something wrong. The ecosystem near Ethan's location had shifted. Predators avoided the area. Apex creatures had gone silent. That did not happen naturally. The Carvel deployed observation drones. Ethan saw one hovering above the trees. The creature growled softly. Ethan understood. No hiding. He stood in the open. The drone scanned him, a human, alive. Standing beside a wild zone apex. The data streamed directly to the Carvel fleet. Shock spread through their command structure. "This is not possible," one officer said. The commander watched the feed closely. "A human does not tame the wild zone," the commander said slowly, but the evidence was there. They decided to correct their mistake. Orbital bombardment was considered, rejected. The planet was too unstable, too dangerous. Instead, they sent hunters. Elite warriors trained to kill apex creatures, armed with weapons designed to burn through armor and bone. The hunters landed at night. Ethan felt them before he saw them. The creature sensed them instantly. They moved together. The hunters believed they were predators entering another hunt. They were wrong. The first hunter died silently, dragged into the darkness, armor torn open like paper. The second fired blindly. The creature dodged. Ethan flanked. Human tactics confused them. They expected instinct. They faced strategy. The forest became a weapon. Vines trapped legs. Shadows hid movement. Fire and claws worked together. One by one, the hunters fell. The last one tried to escape. Ethan did not chase. The creature did. The message was clear. The Carvel lost contact with their elite unit within minutes. Fear entered their ranks. "A human has bonded with the wild zone," someone whispered. "That is impossible," another replied. But no one sounded convinced. Ethan stood among the remains of advanced alien weapons. He studied them carefully. Humans learned from everything. He did not celebrate. He prepared. He knew the Carvel would return in greater force. And they did. A fleet appeared at the edge of the system, larger than before, stronger, angry. They did not attack immediately. They watched. So did Ethan. The creature stood beside him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. The wild zone reacted. Storms formed where there were none before. Creatures gathered at a distance, watching, waiting. The land itself seemed aware. The Carvel commander realized the truth too late. The wild zone was no longer just a place. It was an ally. And humanity was standing at its center. Ethan looked up at the sky. He did not feel small. He felt ready. The galaxy had sent him here to die. Instead, it had created something far more dangerous, and soon everyone would notice. The galaxy did not panic loudly. It panicked quietly. Information about the Wild Zone incident did not spread through public channels. It moved through hidden reports, military briefings, and private conversations between leaders who understood the danger. A human was alive inside the Wild Zone, not hiding, not running, surviving, and worse, bonded. The Carvel Empire locked down all data, but secrecy failed. Too many sensors had seen the changes in the system. Too many traders had noticed fleets moving toward a place everyone avoided. Human High Command received confirmation. Ethan Cross was alive. They did not cheer. They did not celebrate. They listened. Analysts studied the footage again and again. A single human standing beside a wild zone apex predator. The creature did not behave like a tamed animal. It moved with choice, loyalty, purpose. "That's not control," one officer said quietly. "That's partnership." Humans understood partnerships. They also understood consequences. If the galaxy learned that a human could survive the wild zone, everything would change. Fear would turn into aggression. Curiosity would turn into war. So humanity stayed silent. They watched. On the planet, Ethan felt the shift before he saw it. The sky grew darker over several days. Storms formed without reason. Lightning struck the same places again and again, carving marks into the land. The creature became restless. It walked farther each day, returning with blood on its scales. Not from hunting, from fighting. Something was testing the territory. Not the Carvel, something older. Deeper in the wild zone, ancient life began to move. Ethan followed the creature to the edge of a massive clearing. The ground was cracked and blackened, as if burned long ago. At the center stood a structure that was not natural. Alien ruins, old, broken, forgotten. No one in the galaxy had records of civilizations existing this deep in the wild zone. That meant only one thing: they had existed. And they had failed. The creature stopped at the edge. It did not enter. Its scales dimmed slightly, a warning. Ethan understood. This place was dangerous even for it. But humans did not turn away from danger. They studied it. He stepped forward alone. The air changed instantly. Pressure built in his chest. His vision blurred for a moment, then cleared. Symbols on the ruins faintly glowed as he approached. They reacted to him, not the creature, him. Ethan touched the stone. The ground shook. Images flooded his mind, not words, memories, a species long extinct. Powerful, intelligent. They had tried to dominate the wild zone. They built weapons, controlled creatures, changed ecosystems. The wild zone answered. It did not negotiate. It erased them. Ethan pulled his hand away, breathing hard. He understood the message clearly. The wild zone did not reward control. It rewarded balance. That was why he lived. That was why the creature accepted him. He did not try to rule the wild zone. He learned from it. Behind him, the creature let out a low sound, not fear, warning. The sky split open. Carvel drop ships descended in force. This was no scouting mission. This was an invasion. Ethan ran. The creature followed. Energy blasts tore through trees. The forest burned. Creatures fled or attacked anything that moved. The Carvel had changed tactics. They brought machines. Walking war platforms crashed into the forest, crushing everything in their path. Drones filled the sky. Heavy infantry advanced in formations. They were ready this time. Ethan led the creature through narrow paths, areas too dense for machines to move easily. He used elevation, terrain, and timing. Humans adapted. The creature hunted. Together they slowed the advance, but they could not stop it completely. Ethan saw the truth. The Carvel were not here to kill him. They were here to study him. To learn, that was worse. A beam struck near him, throwing him into the dirt. His vision blurred. Pain shot through his side. The creature roared, not in anger, in command. The wild zone answered. Creatures emerged from every direction, not controlled. Not commanded, drawn, the Carvel formation broke. This was not a battle, it was a warning. The forest swallowed machines. Predators tore through infantry. Storms intensified, grounding ships. The Carvel commander ordered retreat, too late. Half the invasion force was lost in minutes. The remaining ships fled the system, carrying terror with them. Ethan lay on the ground, breathing hard. Blood soaked his clothes. The creature stood over him, shielding him from the rain. It lowered its head. Gently, Ethan rested his hand on its scales. "I'm still here," he whispered. The planet quieted. Far away, the galaxy felt it. Sensors recorded energy spikes unlike anything before. Entire governments froze trade routes near the wild zone. Military alliances were questioned. The Carvel Empire suffered its first public defeat in centuries, and it came from one human. Rumors spread. Humans were not just adaptable, they were compatible with places meant to kill gods. Human high command could no longer stay silent. They sent a single message through hidden channels, not to threaten, not to boast. A warning. Do not enter the wild zone. They did not explain why. Those who understood listened. Those who did not prepared for war. On the planet, Ethan stood again. He looked at the ruins once more, then turned away. The past had failed because it tried to rule. He would not make the same mistake. The creature watched him closely. It had chosen him for a reason, not as a king, not as a weapon, but as a bridge. Between humanity and the deadliest place in the galaxy, and the galaxy was finally paying attention. The galaxy was no longer united. The events in the wild zone had forced every major power to choose a side. Some saw humanity as a threat. Others saw them as the only hope against forces older than recorded history. The Carvel Empire chose fear. They declared humans a destabilizing species. Official statements called Ethan Cross an anomaly, a mistake that needed to be erased. Unofficially, they knew the truth was worse. They had provoked something they did not understand. Other species reacted differently. The Valeri Collective, a peaceful but advanced civilization, sent quiet signals to human high command. They did not ask for weapons or protection. They asked for knowledge. How did your kind survive the wild zone? Their message asked. Humans did not answer directly. Instead, they sent data. Records of adaptation, of cooperation, of failure and learning. Humans did not hide their mistakes. That honesty changed everything. Small alliances began to form. Not military ones, informational ones. Species that had always avoided humanity now watched them closely. Some began to respect them. Others prepared to strike first. On the wild zone planet, Ethan felt the tension without knowing the details. The land reacted to distant decisions. Storms came and went without pattern. Creatures migrated in strange ways, gathering closer to his territory. The creature stayed alert at all times. It was no longer just guarding Ethan, it was guarding something else. Balance. Ethan returned to the ruins again, this time with purpose. He studied the symbols carefully, spending days tracing patterns and observing how the land reacted. He noticed something important. The ruins did not activate when he tried to command them. They responded only when he listened. When he rested, when he waited, when he acted without force. The wild zone was not chaos, it was correction. Ethan understood that too much interference would bring destruction, too little would allow decay. The extinct species had failed because they tried to control everything. Humans did not need control, they needed understanding. That lesson spread quietly through human high command. They changed their stance. No fleets moved toward the wild zone, no bases were built. No flags planted. Humanity chose restraint. That choice shocked the galaxy more than any weapon. The Carvel Empire saw restraint as weakness. They planned a final solution. Not invasion. Extraction. They built a device designed to isolate Ethan. A field generator that would disrupt biological bonds, severing the connection between him and the creature. Alone, they believed he would fall like any other species. The fleet moved carefully, avoiding detection as long as possible, but the wild zone noticed. The creature felt it first. It growled low, scales glowing brighter than ever. The land trembled softly like a warning breath. Ethan looked up at the sky. "They're coming," he said calmly. He did not prepare to run, he prepared to stand. The Carvel fleet entered orbit and deployed the device. A faint pulse spread across the planet. The air felt heavy. The creature staggered, clearly affected. Ethan felt pain in his chest, sharp and sudden. The bond strained. The Carvel celebrated too early. They did not understand the bond was not artificial. It was chosen. Ethan placed both hands on the ground. He closed his eyes. He did not fight the pain. He accepted it. He let the wild zone feel his intent, not anger. Not dominance, trust. The land responded. Energy surged upward, not violent but powerful. The device overloaded instantly. The pulse collapsed in on itself, tearing the generator apart. The fleet panicked. Systems failed. Sensors went blind. Ships drifted helplessly. The creature stood tall again, stronger than before. It howled. Not a call for war, a call of judgment. Creatures across the planet answered. Not rushing blindly, but positioning themselves with purpose. The wild zone was not attacking the fleet. It was surrounding it. The Carvel commander finally understood. This place did not belong to them. It did not belong to Ethan. It belonged to itself, and it allowed Ethan to stand within it. Human High Command detected the energy surge. They could no longer pretend this was a small event. They sent a single envoy ship. No weapons, no escorts, just one signal. The ship stopped at the edge of the system. Ethan felt it. He looked toward the stars. "They're here," he said softly. The creature watched him, eyes steady. The envoy did not land. It transmitted a message. "Ethan Cross," the voice said. "Humanity acknowledges your choice. We will not command you. We will not rescue you unless you ask." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm not lost," he replied. "I'm exactly where I need to be." The message ended. The galaxy received the recording. It changed everything. Humanity had not claimed the wild zone. The wild zone had accepted a human. Fear shifted. Respect followed. The Carvel fleet withdrew in silence, humiliated beyond repair. Their empire cracked internally as allies questioned their judgment. On the planet, peace returned slowly. Ethan walked the forest with the creature beside him. They were no longer just surviving, they were stabilizing. The wild zone calmed where they passed. Storms softened. Predators stopped unnecessary fights. Life adjusted. The galaxy watched from afar, uncertain. Something had changed forever, not through conquest, not through fear, but through coexistence. And deep within the wild zone, something ancient stirred, not hostile, not friendly, but aware. The test was not over. It had only reached its next stage. The wild zone changed again. It did not happen suddenly. There was no explosion, no warning signal. The change was slow, careful, and deliberate, like something ancient stretching after a long sleep. Ethan noticed it first in the silence. The forest sounds softened. Creatures moved with less tension. Even the storms became rare, shorter, controlled. The wild zone was no longer reacting. It was observing. The creature walked beside Ethan, alert but calm. Its glowing eyes no longer searched only for danger. They watched the land itself. Ethan felt it too. Something was aware of him. He returned to the ruins once more, drawn by a feeling he could not explain. This time the ruins did not resist his presence. The air felt warm, almost welcoming. As he stepped into the center, the symbols lit up fully. The world slowed. Ethan's mind filled with a presence that did not speak in words, but in understanding. It was not a god, not a ruler. It was a system, a consciousness formed over millions of years, the wild zone. It existed to correct imbalance. Civilizations that grew too aggressive, too controlling, too destructive were tested. Most failed. They tried to dominate, exploit, or escape. They were removed. Ethan understood why he survived. Humans adapted instead of controlling. They learned instead of conquering. They accepted limits. The wild zone did not need soldiers. It needed anchors. The presence showed him visions. Across the galaxy, empires expanded without care. Worlds were stripped, species erased, balance broken. The Carvel were only one example. A greater collapse was coming. The wild zone was preparing to act, not through destruction alone, through choice. Ethan opened his eyes. The creature was watching him closely. "I know," he said quietly. The presence did not demand obedience. It offered responsibility. Ethan could leave, or he could stay and become a stabilizing force, a bridge between the wild zone and the galaxy. A living warning, not a weapon. He chose to stay. Far from the planet, panic returned to the galaxy. Strange failures spread across aggressive empires. Ships malfunctioned near unstable regions. Hyperlanes shifted unpredictably. Worlds dependent on exploitation suffered sudden ecological collapse. The wild zone's influence was expanding. Not violently, precisely. Human high command faced pressure from all sides. Allies asked for protection. Enemies accused humanity of controlling an unknown force. Humans responded with the truth. We do not control it. Many did not believe them. The Carvel Empire, weakened and desperate, made its final mistake. They launched a weapon not meant for Ethan. It was meant for the wild zone itself. A massive energy strike designed to destabilize the region permanently. If they could not control it, they would destroy it. The weapon fired from deep space. The wild zone reacted instantly. Stars dimmed, space bent. Energy surged across systems. On the planet, Ethan fell to one knee as pain ripped through him. The creature roared, not in rage, but in alarm. The presence surged around him. This was not correction. This was extinction. If the weapon reached its target, the wild zone would respond fully. Entire regions of space would collapse. Innocent species would die. Ethan made a choice. He reached out not to the wild zone, but through it. Humanity felt it. Every human ship, station, and colony experienced a moment of clarity. Not words, understanding. Human high command acted without hesitation. They broadcast a single command across all known channels. Stand down. Power down all weapons. This is not a request. Human fleets moved not to attack, but to intercept. They placed themselves between the weapon and the wild zone. Allies followed. Some enemies hesitated. The Carvel fired again. The galaxy slowed down. For the first time in recorded history, expansion stopped. Fleets no longer rushed to claim new systems. Empires paused not because they were weak, but because they were uncertain. The wild zone had spoken. Not with words, with restraint. Ethan Cross felt the calm settle across the land. The storms faded. The creatures returned to natural patterns. The planet breathed like a living thing finally at rest. The presence returned one last time. It did not surround him. It did not overwhelm him. It stood with him, equal in intent. The wild zone had reached its decision. Ethan was no longer just an anchor. He was proof. Proof that a species could grow strong without becoming destructive. Proof that intelligence did not require control. Proof that survival did not demand domination. The presence showed him the final choice. He could remain as he was, a guardian bound to one world, or he could become something new. A bridge, not tied to a single planet, but to the idea the wild zone represented. Balance carried forward through humanity, not enforced by destruction, but by example. Ethan chose the bridge. The change was not violent, it was gentle. The wild zone did not alter his body. It did not turn him into a weapon or a god. It changed his connection. His awareness expanded just enough to feel imbalance, just enough to guide rather than command. The creature watched closely. Their bond did not weaken. It evolved. The creature was no longer bound to the planet either. It could leave the wild zone without harm, not as a tool but as a symbol. Together they stepped beyond the forest. Humanity waited, not with fleets, with trust. The first human envoy returned, landing carefully on the edge of the system. Ethan approached the ship openly, the creature walking beside him. Weapons remained powered down. For the first time, humans met the wild zone without fear. Ethan spoke simply. We don't own this place, we never will, but we can listen to it, and we can help others understand what it asks. The message spread across the galaxy. Some rejected it, some feared it, but many listened. Trade routes shifted away from exploitation. Worlds were restored instead of stripped. Military doctrine changed. Not everywhere, not perfectly, but enough. The wild zone receded into legend once more, not as a place of death, but as a reminder. The Carvel Empire became a warning taught in academies across species. Power without balance always ends the same way. Years passed. Ethan traveled, not as a ruler, not as an enforcer, as a witness. He went to systems on the edge of collapse. He did not threaten, he did not command. He showed them what happened when balance was respected, and when it was ignored, most listened. Some did not. Those who did not eventually faced consequences, not from Ethan, from reality itself. The creature remained at his side, aging slowly, still deadly, still calm. Wherever they walked, conflict softened. Predators withdrew, violence hesitated, not because of fear, because something deeper recognized harmony. Humanity changed too. They were no longer the reckless newcomers. They became mediators, explorers, restorers, still capable of war but no longer eager for it. Other species stopped asking, Why humans? They began asking how. Ethan never answered directly. He lived the answer. One day at the edge of the wild zone, Ethan stopped. The presence returned for the last time, not to speak, to thank. The wild zone no longer needed him. Balance had spread, the test had passed. Ethan felt no sadness, only peace. He turned away from the wild zone, walking back toward the stars, the creature beside him. Behind them, the deadliest place